In a certain city, a virtuous and religious king ruled. The flow of his charity never stopped. Everywhere the king generously gave donations and offerings. One day, a sage came to his court. He said to the king, "O king, I've heard that you are a very charitable ruler. In Ambrigershala, no one leaves your palace empty-handed. Will you be able to give me what I ask for?" The king replied, "Tell me, O sage, what do you desire?" The sage said, "Either give me your kingdom for 12 years or give up your religion." Hearing this, the king was worried at first, but after thinking it through, he said, "O sage, I give you my entire kingdom." Saying this, the king left without taking anything, abandoning everything, and walked away completely alone. As he walked, he came across a garden. There was a well and a drinking water station there. It was a beautiful place. The king decided to rest there. As he looked around, he saw a beautiful horse saddled nearby, and a beautiful woman sitting next to it, crying. Naturally, the king felt compassion. He asked the woman why she was crying. The woman replied, "O king, I am a princess. My father and brother have been killed by enemies. I somehow managed to escape and flee here. Now only you can help me." The king mounted the horse. As they traveled, they reached another king's city. The woman said, "You go into the city and rent a good house. I'll wait here." The king said, "I don't have even a penny." "And then you go and buy the horse and get food for that woman." The princess prepared the food and asked the king to eat. The king said, "Please, you also eat." She replied, "Lord, you eat first, and then I'll eat after you." The king ate, and the woman ate as well. The next day, the woman said, "O king, you are burdened with much work. Why don't you hire a servant?" The king replied, "I don't even have a penny, and you're talking to me as if I were still a king." "O king, don't worry. If I weren't a woman, I would have done these tasks myself and wouldn't have asked you. Whenever you need money, feel free to ask me without hesitation." The king went and hired a servant. After some days, the woman said, "O king, to pass time, why don't you go to the court of the local king sometimes and listen to the discussions there?" Now, the king started going to the court daily. The local king, thinking that he must be a relative of one of his ministers, didn't question him. Let me know if you need further assistance with this story. In a certain city, a virtuous and religious king ruled. The flow of his charity never stopped. Everywhere the king generously gave donations and offerings. One day, a sage came to his court. The ministers, he said to the king, form like that of a king, said nothing despite knowing the matter related to the king. A few days passed this way. One day, the king and his ministers discussed that king. He had no relation to anyone, which made them very curious. The next day, the king asked for his introduction. He told them everything. Seeing his devotion to righteousness, the king gave him a warm welcome. The king placed his crown on his head, took his turban, placed it on his own, seated him on the throne, and made a vow of friendship. The next day, he was invited again to the court. The king narrated the entire incident to the woman. She said, "That's fine. You should invite the entire court, council, and the whole city." He hesitated at first, but due to her influence, she said, "You also invite the entire city. How will you arrange it?" "Fine," he said. "Do as you wish. After all, you are my friend." In the evening, the king of that city sent a soldier to check the preparations and said, "Go, see what the arrangements are for the morning feast." "Maharaj, don't worry. If you are impatient, come to the garden where you brought me from." The king rode his horse to the garden and saw that the entire assembly of gods was engaged in the task. It was filled with infinite divine glory, and his amazement knew no bounds. The next morning, the king, along with the whole city, was served a grand feast. Everyone was astonished upon seeing this wonder. The king of the city also praised the arrangements and the meal wholeheartedly. After the feast, the entire assembly of gods disappeared. Then the woman said, "King, how long had you granted that sage the kingdom for?" "The papers." "I am not a woman. I am your righteousness, Dharma. As long as you didn't abandon me, I didn't abandon you either. I stayed with you in the form of a woman and ensured that you did not suffer in any way. But now, as everyone understands that life without righteousness, Dharma, can be incomplete and chaotic, but with righteousness, one can overcome any challenge. This is the English translation of your story, step by step, according to the timestamps provided. The ministers, seeing his form like that of a king, said nothing despite knowing the matter related to the king. A few days passed this way.